It is May 11th, and we are here at the Sensiba with the Sage Intacct quarterly release webinar. This is release 2 of 2023, and that will be coming out tomorrow, May 12th, after the close of business. So I'd like to welcome you to our webinar. Thank you for taking a bit of time out of your day to discover with us some of the new functionality that's coming out in this release. If you don't know us yet, you probably do, but I'm Tom. I am the Senior Solutions Consultant here at Sensiba, and I've been working with accounting technology for a few decades now, and with Sage Intacct specifically for about 10 years. So I've been through a lot of quarterly releases. The product has changed remarkably, like it's unrecognizable from how it looked when I started and what it could do. So I'm always excited to see what we're going to get each quarter and present it to you guys. And with me, I've got David Colburn. David.
Hi there, I'm David. I'm a technical project manager here at Sensiba. I joined back in December. I have a corporate accounting background where I worked with several accounting systems, but Intacct quickly became my favorite. I liked it so much, I decided to join Sensiba and help implement Intacct for various customers. Like Tom just said, I've always looked forward to these releases. As soon as that notice would pop up on the homepage on Intacct, I was usually reading it right away because I wanted to know what improvements were coming. I was always pleased to see how much investment Intacct put into its product. You know, there are quarters where sometimes the releases are a little ho-hum, not very exciting, but usually they're adding pretty significant improvements. So I love seeing that it's not stagnant software. You know, when you commit to it, it's a whole evolving ecosystem. So these are always fun announcements and feature updates for me.
Yeah, thanks, David. That's a great point, that the product is not stagnant, and you know, we're always looking forward to what we're going to get. And even when it seems like it's a small change, it's often an incremental step to something big that will sort of reveal itself over a few quarters. So today we're going to talk about just that whole process of Sage Intacct releases, what to expect if you're a relatively new customer. And then we've picked a few release 2 features that we want to share with you, just because we know what our customers are using, what they're needing. And so we kind of sort through all of the release notes and find what we think are the real prizes for our clients, and also which things in the release are really nothing burgers at this point. So today we're going to talk about, for our contracts customers, we're going to talk about the ability now to bundle SaaS products into kits and how that will work. We're going to talk about locking our closed periods for statutory reporting. We'll look at editing the dates on accounts receivable payment reversals. We'll take a quick demo of drill downs through account groups in your financial report writer, and then a preview of the partial ownership and tiered consolidations in global or domestic consolidations product. And lastly, a preview of Sage Intacct Payroll, which is something that customers have been asking about for quite a long time. So in the process of getting Sage Intacct releases, as we said, it's like clockwork. Every quarter we get new functionality. And the great thing is, compared to other systems that I have worked on over the years, that everybody on Sage Intacct is on the same system. They're on the same release. You don't have to worry about what database it's running on, what operating system. Everything is contained and managed, including the security, by Sage Intacct. And those upgrades don't break the integrations and customizations that have already been applied by clients. There may be new permissions or configurations that are required, though, on new releases. So we'll make sure to point those out. And the thing is, then this is why we do this webinar every quarter, is that our customers may not see the new functionality, because if you don't know to go look for it and give yourself permission to it, then it may not be obvious. In addition to the quarterly releases, there are interim releases and updates just happening all the time to keep the code cleaned up, to prevent any kind of malware risks, and to address functional bugs that might come up. But this is the functional quarterly release coming out tomorrow, as I said, May 12th at the close of business. So when you log in on Monday, or I mean, hopefully Monday and hopefully not Saturday or Sunday, but you will see the new functionality and you'll be able to configure anything that you need to actually use it. So first up, David, what you got?
So this is very exciting. I worked in technology for a while, so seeing this update is fantastic. I wish I had this, thinking about jobs I had many years ago. So for our contract users in Intacct, so that's primarily SaaS products, so you're selling software as a service, there is now an option to build a kit or a bundle. This is a really popular selling tool where your sales team might want to bundle products to sell them. So you might have a primary product that you bundle with support, and maybe you have an add-on that doesn't sell very well on its own, but by bundling it, you're able to sell it more. However, you probably don't want to reveal to your client when they get an invoice what the actual cost of each of those is. So the way you had to deal with this in the past was only in the printed document template, the PDF of the invoice. So you couldn't see it on screen, but the printed version could show a bundle. Well, now you can actually do it in the UI, and there's actually some really great additional features with these kits. So when you're building these products, you can have 2 to 50 components. 50 is not actually the limit. That's just where Intacct says it might slow down a bit. If you're bundling more than 50, I think you have an incredible product base. So you can assign a default revenue allocation for each kit component, although you can definitely edit that as you go. The billing method for this does have to be fixed price, although I'm having trouble coming up with a use case where it wouldn't be fixed price. And the frequency for billing has to be included with every invoice. If you're using the contracts module, that makes sense to you. If you're not, I'm sorry. Each kit component, thanks for changing slides, this is perfect, is a separate contract line item. So like I said, you have a default revenue allocation, but you can change that in the contract line item. You can also change the revenue template for each of those components. So that might be important. Maybe they're all software products that you're selling, but if it's something like setup that you're bundling in, you just have your setup and support as an all-in-one, you might have a different revenue template that needs to be attached for one or more of those components. And again, this is in the UI. So not only will it show up as one line, as you can see in that final box in the lower right, the customer is only going to see one line item. But within the UI, you can see it's one line that you can expand in. That's the middle box that takes you to the contract line. So this is a fantastic update. Some people are probably using marketplace add-ons to do some of this. This just adds significant functionality intact. And again, it's probably going to make sales teams happy. That's where I often encountered the request for bundling within SaaS.
Yeah, and if you're already subscribed to contracts, this is just included, right, David? It's not an additional product to buy. It's just part of contracts now.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so in the general ledger, we have some customers in some countries in the Sage Intacct world that have a requirement to lock reporting periods. That is, of course, you've always had flexibility in closing reporting periods, but now when you've closed them, of course, the flexibility that's great about Intacct is you have something to post, you can make an adjusting journal entry, or you can reopen it, and if you have the correct permissions, and post an additional entry. But if you're reporting statutory, whether it's in France or whether it's to the SEC, you need to lock that financial data so it doesn't change anymore and cannot be unlocked. So in this new configuration that will be coming out tomorrow, it'll be able to, in the configuration for general ledger, enable that closed statutory reporting period to be locked. And then anybody who's going to be able to actually do that lock, which hopefully is very few people, will need that added to their general ledger permissions. in their role or their user. And then lastly, once they have that permission and refresh or log back in, they will see this lock closed periods under the books header in the general ledger. This works a lot like closing the books, that you pick the period through which it's going to be locked, and then everything, all periods prior to that are locked as well. So if you have the right permission, you could go back and actually unlock it, but that's not something we're going to talk about here, okay? Well, you never heard that.
Yeah, that's a great feature. A use case example is maybe you have an accounting manager who you want to give control to close the books and subledgers, but your controller would be maybe the only one who has the ability to lock a period. So if the accounting manager wants to make a decision to open and close certain transactions, that's fine, but the controller could maybe be the one who could actually lock the period, and then that accounting manager could not even open or close them.
That's right.
I think we also talked about another use case is some companies have a concept of hard close versus soft close. So maybe you could think of opening and closing as your soft close, and hard close would be locking. So if you have a close process like that, this is fantastic functionality.
Yeah, and it's something that is a want to have for a lot of us, but in some countries, and I believe France is one of them, it's a need to have. And as Sage Intacct is expanding in France, then that's something that they'll need.
Yeah, in the UK as well. Once you file that, you have to lock those periods because that can't change.
All right, on to AR payment reversals. What you got?
Yeah, so this is great. Accountants are very detail oriented, but we all make mistakes. And sometimes that mistake is something as silly as a date when you're recording a payment from a customer, for example. So if you've made this mistake before where you received a payment and maybe the year changed, you're still typing 2022 instead of 2023, or the month changed, whatever. Maybe you're an international company and those pesky US versus international dates are confusing you. Whatever the reason, if you've had to reverse a payment before, it's great, that's functionality. But if you happen to get the wrong date, it is quite the pain to correct that. Often involves creating a series of dummy transactions just to correct the underlying GL accounts. So now within AR only, when you have an AR payment, instead of it showing up as a reversed payment, it is a reversal, and you can click on that hyperlink that you see in the top right window, and that opens that transaction reversal date window, and you can change it there. What this does is it changes the date of the original reversal. It's not creating another transaction in your GL. You will only ever see one reversal in your general ledger. You're not going to see a bunch of different entries littering your ledger. It's just going to change the last one you made. You do need to enable this within the AR module. So in the left box, you go down to edit, enable edit of reversal dates, and then you need to assign permissions because maybe you don't want to give everyone permission to do this. And that's in that kind of middle window at the bottom. This is currently only available for AR, but we do expect that this will roll out to AP in an upcoming release. I know I personally have seen more mistakes happen on the AP side than the AR, but this is just a great time saver for something that might seem minor, but if you've had to deal with this experience, this can add just hours to a close if you've got maybe a smattering of payments that went in incorrectly.
Yeah, and then you have all this noise that's off in the future of your books. So we're glad that this exists to keep that clean. And also when you do make that edit on the date, it will be recorded in the audit trail. So it's not as if there's no evidence that it was changed, but at least it won't be messing up your subledgers. So another feature that you maybe didn't realize you needed, but once you see it, I think you'll say, oh, hey, I could have used that. So this is now available, or will be tomorrow, in the financial reports. So anything that's produced out of the financial report writer that uses account groups, financial account groups, to roll up to the taxonomy of your P&L or your balance sheet or whatever your financial statements are, used to be, well, actually, you know what? I'm going to show you. So let me just switch over to Chrome here. So here is the as is. This is what a financial report looks like now using the account groups, right? So you've got these headers, but you can't drill into the numbers until you unroll them. And when you unroll them, you can see the you have to go all the way to the GL detail account before you actually get a hyperlink on a number that you can drill to. So in the new version, here's a preview of release 2. You can see that all of the financial numbers are drillable here and at all levels. So if I open up operating expenses, and I can see that I can drill into one of these subgroups here. So for instance, when I'm going to click on this 12,713 in marketing, and I can see that I've got the detail for each detail account, subtotals, and then the total that adds up to the number I drilled in on. So if you're doing some research into your financial statement totals, this could be a huge time saver because you don't need to drill into each GL account separately to find out what's going on in those reports. So I'm pretty psyched about this, and it's not something that needs to be, there's no configuration or permissions required to do this apart from what you've already got set up as far as drill down permissions. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, dreamy update, saving a lot of clicks there.
Yeah. Also, this is coming out as an early adopter availability only right now, but partial ownership is becoming an increasing factor in our in companies that we're seeing. So we've got joint ventures or multi-party investments, any place where our Sage Intacct customer doesn't have 100% ownership or controlling interest in a subsidiary or one of the entities. Now we are able to actually incorporate the percentage of ownership within that consolidation process and roll up to different tiers of ownership within the consolidation. So this multi-level roll-up and reporting by parent will potentially be really huge for some of our more complex clients. And that will still enable the drill down through your reporting books. So if you have multiple consolidation reporting books, you'll be able to drill back through those and select which reporting books you're reporting on through that entity structure. So cool stuff there. And I think that the early adopter program is kind of like beta testing. So you need to apply to get into it. The requirements right now is that you have to be an existing customer of either domestic consolidations or global consolidations, and or have a requirement for non-controlling interest or tiered roll-ups in your consolidation.
That's a really impressive update that even the large ERPs struggle with. So exciting to see that. Definitely proving that Intacct is a leader in this multi-entity environment, which it's always had. So another update is Sage Intacct Payroll is not necessarily a new product. It's just sort of a rebranding of their partnership with ADP. There's always been this partnership with Intacct and Payroll. It's been long established. It is a very deep integration with several modules. It's not just pulling in employees, it's taking timesheets and even integration with the project module. So it's a powerful integration. And this just really solidifies the technology path for Intacct and ADP to continue to work together. So new features added on either side are not going to break systems. This is great when you have an HR and accounting team that need to work closely together and don't want to duplicate work. Getting not just your payroll journal entries in, but employees added in both systems. So this is a great step forward. And you can add this to your Intacct subscription as well. And you'd also have access to Intacct as a partner for that implementation and integration. So sometimes this is an issue with payroll. You've got a great payroll implementation or account manager, but for the integration with your accounting system, you're probably kind of struggling to find someone on a team. You'd have the backing of Intacct and an entire dedicated team to do that implementation for payroll. And the underlying product for this is ADP Workforce. It's not a lighter version like ADP Run, so it's very powerful, scalable. You can use as much or a little bit as you need. We do want to note that Intacct is not abandoning other payroll providers, so it's not like we're partnering with ADP and no others will work. There are other fantastic payroll partners that work. This is just coming out as a leading solution that is white labeled by Sage Intacct.
Yeah, that's a good point. We have a number of payroll providers in the Intacct ecosystem that integrate entries at a general ledger level, at least. But as David said, there's a lot more depth in this particular integration that's been developed over several years.
So that's it for the major highlights that we found that we thought were most meaningful for our clients. So we looked at kits for bundling SaaS products, locking closed statutory reporting periods. So that adds a two-step functionality, closing and locking, the ability to edit dates on AR payment reversals, hopefully AP reversals coming soon, drilling down through account groups, saving time on clicks when you're reviewing reports, partial ownership and tier consolidations available via early adopters. So please reach out to us if you're interested in that and we can help you get into that program. And then a continued partnership with ADP with Sage Intacct Payroll. So we didn't talk about every single update here. We've captured here some of the others that are in that release. So definitely encourage you to, when you log into Intacct on your homepage, there's a link there to read the release notes where they expand on some of these. We've highlighted here some of the other features that we did not cover in today's webinar, but you might want to go look at them because one of these features might be super meaningful for you. One of them might save you a lot of clicks. Like I'll just call out, there's one in AR and AP. Now, when you click on a customer or a vendor, it takes you to the vendor or customer record. It no longer takes you to the AR ledger, AP ledger for that vendor or customer. That's really cool. I can't tell you how many times I've clicked on that on accident, meaning to edit their profile, and instead I go to this ledger. So little features like that might be really meaningful for your team. So take a look at that. The release notes there are in a link. It's very easy to understand language. They don't speak tech to you, and it's nicely organized by Intacct module.
Yeah, thanks, David. That's a good intro to this piece, that you can always get to the release notes from the current release and several prior releases on your Intacct homepage. So if I go back over to my sample company here and go to the homepage, there's my release notes, along with links to help and support, the Intacct community, the Learning Center, all of the things that you need right there on your homepage. So don't forget to check those. And as David said, the full release notes are right here, and you can go through and check them out in detail. Make sure then once the release is dropped on Friday evening, that when you log in, you go in and check for those features that you think you might want to enable. And of course, reach out to us if there's any assistance that you need with that. So that's release 2 coming out May 12th. The next release will be August 18th, and you can expect to hear from us again with a release webinar on that, probably on the 17th. So thank you very much for joining us here today. Again, I'm glad that you were able to take a little bit of time out of your day to see some of the cherries that we've picked from the release 2 on Sage Intacct. And please do reach out to either David or myself or your SSF consultant if you want some follow-up on any of these items. Thanks again for joining today.